In this video, I'll show you how I recorded these ambience layers for the background of this loop that I've made. How you can record that yourself with things that you have lying around the house to spice up your music, add a sort of subtle noise layer in the background to fill the silent gaps in between. So this is the loop plus the ambience layers that I've recorded. This is the ambience layer on its own. And this is the loop without the ambience layer. Without it, it's fine, but it could sound better, and I think these layers just add a nice foundation for it to sit on. So I'll show you how I did that. What I did is I recorded a couple of things that I have lying on my desk. I have a shaker, some plastic, a receipt, paper, some keys, and then I also recorded my room ambience just with this mic, making no noise, and then layered those and added some effects, and I'll show you how to do that now. So let's delete all of this. First thing that I'm going to do is record the plastic. Now these are not really rhythmic things, so it pretty much doesn't matter how you record it. I'm not using the shaker as a sort of rhythmic element. I'm using it more as a continuous layer underneath. So I'm just going to record some of this and then loop it, and we'll see how this works out. Alright, and now I'm going to make it a continuous loop. It does not really matter where you set the loop and the fade points, seeing as it's going to be very silent and you'll probably not even notice that it's crossing over. Okay, now what we're going to do is add a ping-pong delay for that stereo width, and then I'm going to add utility and just bring in the width a little bit so it's not that extreme, and then just bring down the volume until it's almost not audible, but with all the layers it's going to become a nice subtle feeling rather than something that you pay attention to. Next up, we've got some paper. I'm going to do the exact same thing with that. Alright, so this was a little bit loud. You can have every now and again a nice little peak, and then you'll hear the delay just accentuating that a little bit, which is cool. But for the most part, I do want a sort of subtle layer with not much volume difference. So I'm going to cut that accordingly. And just drag that to the front. Perfect. Now you can also use things such as saturation, distortion, just to change the color of these sounds. Like that. And one thing that I did forget to mention is on the master, I've put some effects. I'll just turn those off for now, and I'll address those later. So we've got the plastic, we've got the paper. Now let's do the shaker layer. If you don't have a shaker at home, you can use, I don't know, you could probably get a cup of rice, or a little Tupperware of rice, or some other grain or sand, and make your own shaker, and it'll be just as good. Let's record this. Perfect. I like the second part much better, so I'm going to just cut that first one out. Layer it like this. So now all in all, the shaker's a little bit too loud for my liking. The shaker's quite prominent, so I'm going to just get a utility to drag that down. Or actually, let me go on the master and drag them all down. And then individually drag these up. Okay, I like that. And then next up, new channel. I'm going to delete that and keep this. Keys have a nice sort of metallic sound that I'm going to record. This is now not a continuous layer, but sort of a little detail every now and again. Let's go. Great, so let's take a listen. Sounds good to me already. And then the last layer that I've got is just recording my room. My computer's on and it's got a fan going, which is going to add a little bit more white noise and just any sort of background noise which may occur. I'm going to record that and then bring that volume up. So let's just do that. And for this, obviously, you must be quite still unless you want to have creaks and cracks in the recording. Now I'm going to bring the volume up quite a bit so that you can actually hear what the recording sounds like. Okay, so that is really not that exciting, it's just white noise, but it adds a nice backdrop for the rest of the sounds. So to me that sounds pretty good already. Now on the master of these, or sorry, rather the group for all these ambient recordings, I've got a sidechain running. You can use a sidechain compressor if you want to do it that way. And I've cut out the low end just so that I avoid any sort of rumbling that I don't want. The compressor is with quite a high ratio and quite a fast attack, just cutting down on the peaks a little bit. And then this is quite an interesting one. This is a resonator. Basically what this does is it's adding notes to the recording. If I turn the dry wet up all the way. It's essentially adding a tone over the recording. And it's acting as a sort of long chord in a way. Now, for that, depending on what your bass line or chords are doing, you'll have to use your ears and find the chords that it's playing. For this one, it's playing in key. But I don't want it that loud, so I've just brought it down. It's very subtle, but it kind of adds a little sort of pad in the background. Now for me the shaker is a little bit loud, so I'm going to turn that down, and this is really up to you, just finding a balance that you like. And then finally I'm going to get another EQ and just add a little bit more body and a little bit more high end. Yeah, that's about it. That's how I like to add some details and textures to my music. You can use anything. I mean, experiment with things that you have lying around. Find different textures that you like. For example, something I also sometimes do is take the ambience recording of just the room, and you can pitch it down a little bit to get a different sound. And you could do the same maybe with the keys. If you want a sort of darker tone, you can pitch that down. Sounds good too. And the delay is really key here for me. that delay adds a little bit of rhythm and gives the sound, I think, a little bit of context. Every time you hear a little peak, you hear that bouncing around, and it feels natural. It feels like you want to sort of move to it, which is what dance music's all about. So yeah, that's a little tip. Hopefully you learn something and you can use in your own music.